Shame time, shame channel.
Same that time, same that channel.
Yeah, well, shame time because it's I cannot remember which villain he was fighting with the old Batman episodes, so they would say shame time, shame channel.
Oh gosh.
Yep. All right. Okay, so let's get started. I think the streaming is on already. Yep, it is on, and we'll make sure that the sound is on as well. I was hoping that I could use my Bluetooth headset so that my voice wouldn't kind of fade out when I walk away, and then kind of fade back in when I'm close to the mic again. But I couldn't get it to work today. I was able to get it to work at home. I have to find out how the setup is different from home. But I'm not going to spend too much time to fuzz on that, at least not now. So what we'll do today is to kind of take a look at the homework assignment. There were quite a few questions related to the fact that the isSet function applied to some of the underscore get variables in a form. The key to get this homework done is to make use of a combination of those things, okay? So instead of doing the homework assignment that you're supposed to do, I am going to work on something that is slightly different, just for testing purposes. Okay. Because I think multiple people have kind of the same question, so it is probably a good use of class time to talk about it. Did you guys check out my solution to the other questions? Okay, good, very good. All right, so I'm just going to make one form.php, and we'll make it as simple as possible. Oh, by the way, this is just a little tip here. I made a form called Skele, which is skeleton. So anytime I need to make a particular form or any type of code, I just copy Skele to the new PHP program. So I have like the usual basic stuff to start with. I don't have to start from scratch. Okay, that's all. Okay, so what we'll do is we're gonna do a form here. There we go, and we'll put in. Okay, I'm not as familiar with HTML as you guys, so you probably know more about HTML than I do. There we go. So I have to cheat a little bit and look at some of the sample code. All right, so I'll just copy this. Okay. And I'll get rid of these. Click that. Go back and edit it. And I just need to move things around a little bit. So these 5 lines have to go into the body. So 5dd, and paste it here. There we go. So now we have a form where the action is empty. The method is get, and it has got your last name, first name, and the submit button. The submit button is kind of special because it has got a name of my form. So you kind of have to remember all of these things. The first thing, if you read my code, the first thing that I do is I turn all of these names, F name, L name, and my form, into variables. Okay, so let me show you what I mean by that. Okay, some of you have not seen the code that I sent out, so you may not know what I'm talking about. So I'll show you exactly what I mean. So I'm going to turn this part into actual code. So we'll say, angle bracket PHP. Yep, go ahead.
I would like to also let you know that for the homework assignment, there says no assignment sheet available when you click the assignment for the homework coming up for
okay.
functions. Yeah, the functions. For
functions? Okay, we'll fix that next because I want to fix this. I want to explain this one first. Okay, this one is kind of is not required in your homework assignment. In other words, if you don't do it this way, don't worry. No points will be taken off. But I want to show you because it might be useful in the long run. So I need to escape all the double quotes inside the string itself. I could have done this using a VI feature. Okay, I'll show you what a VI feature is. So I'm left with these two lines, okay, to replace all the double quotes with backslash double quotes. Why do I need to do that? Okay, because I don't want to just kind of say, okay, this is what I'm doing. I want you guys to know why I'm doing this. So why am I inserting backslash in front of every single double quote except for the first and the last?
Commenting out.
I'm not commenting out.
Escape.
I'm escaping.
Yeah. Well, it's
Okay.
called escaping, like she said. And
Right.
the purpose of it is, in this case, that your print string is part of PHP code, and quotes mean something different in PHP code.
Yep.
As opposed to how they would normally be HTML code. So they get to read the quotes as part of the HTML.
Yep.
Comment them out to be seen
Okay.
with quotes.
Exactly. So that's exactly right. So I'm going to use a trick in VI. So in VI, you can specify something like this. The dot means the current line, and then dot +1 means the line next to the current line. So I'm specifying a range of line numbers, which is the line that I was on and the line next to it. And then I can specify a command called substitute. And with substitute, you can say, I want to substitute a single quote with a backslash single quote. Now, I know there are two backslashes here, but because backslash also has a special meaning in VI, so you have to escape the backslash. So that's why you need to use a double backslash to specify a single backslash as a replacement part. So I'm replacing a single double quote with a backslash followed by a single double quote. And I need to do this part too. The /G means that if I find multiple occurrences on the same line, replace all of those. Okay? So here, and when I press the enter key, you should see the magic happening. Ding, like that. So auto-magically, yes, I did say auto-magically, all the quotes on those two lines, all the double quotes on those two lines got replaced by backslash double quote. So this is the kind of stuff that a good editor would allow you to do. I suspect whatever editor you're using allows you to do that as well. Okay, so make use of the editor to do things like that. Okay, so that's pretty easy. So the first thing I want to do is save the file and test it to make sure that it still works. So arccis.net, my name, cisw410, and this is form1.php. Okay, everything works. It's cool. All right, go back to the editor. And this time, I'm going to make a change that won't make the program or make the output look any different. So this time, I'm going to say my form equals to my form. In other words, I'm just using a variable to store a particular string. It doesn't seem like it's going to be helpful in any way, but you can see that later on, it can be very helpful. My form equals, oh, not my form anymore. So I want each name, fname, to be just fname. They don't have to be exactly the same. You can say first name equals to fname, that's fine too. And then lname equals to lname. So everything that has a name, I'm now using a variable to store that string. Okay? Why would I do that? Well, because now I can replace all the references here. Whenever I refer to the name fname here, I can change that to just $fname. And whenever I refer to lname, I can refer to $lname. And here, I'm changing my form to $myform. And you might say that this is redundant. I mean, why would anyone do something like this? Well, okay, how about this? Let me first make sure that the code still works the way it did, just to make sure I didn't break anything. All right, seems to work just fine. I didn't break anything. So now I'm going to do the homework assignment. So when you do the homework assignment, you have to differentiate between three cases. The first case is you got to this page because of the URL, but with nothing specified on the URL. There are no get variables defined. So in that case, if the fields are empty, you should not complain, because it's the first time that somebody is getting onto this page, so you really should not complain about it. Is that making any sense? Yes?
Yes.
No? Okay. So how do we know that this is the first time somebody get to this page, and if none of the fields is filled out, don't complain, just print out the form, and that's it. Sorry? Is set. Okay, but which variable, which name should I be looking for?
First name and last name.
No, not first name, last name.
Submit.
Submit, okay, or the name of the form, okay? Now, if you look for L name and F name, it works with a text field, but it won't work with buttons. Is that okay? Let me say that one more time. If you have a form, it has text fields, and you don't fill in the text fields and you press the submit button, then the text fields will be reflected on the URL to be empty strings. But they exist, they are just empty. Is that okay? If you use buttons or checkboxes, and you don't click anything, and you hit the submit button, they don't even appear in the URL. They are absent. When they're absent, you cannot even say whether they're empty or not, because they're not even there. Is that okay? Okay, so it is kind of important to differentiate between those two cases. So I'm gonna borrow can I borrow a drinking bottle? I'm not gonna drink, I'm just gonna.
Oh.
Okay. Okay, so if you have a field filled in, or it is on the URL, at least you have a bottle. Then you can ask, is there content, is there water in the bottle? On the other hand, if you're using buttons or checkboxes, and you just hit the submit button without checking anything, there's no bottle. You cannot ask whether the bottle is empty, because there's no bottle. So the first question you have to ask is there a bottle? Okay, thank you so much. Okay. But I don't even want to check the other things, because the one thing that I need to check, or I can check, is my form. If my form exists, that is a good indicator that somebody got onto this page because of clicking the submit button. Okay? If that is absent, that means I got to this page not because somebody clicked on the submit button, but because somebody just typed in the URL, or it is linked from somewhere else. Is that making any sense or not? Yes? Okay. So that means, in this case, I can just use a conditional statement. Let's just say that, I'm not interested in printing an error message or anything like that. I just need to know, am I here because somebody pressed the submit button or not? Okay, that's all I need to know. So what I can do now is I can say if not is set, underscore get, dollar underscore get, and my form, aha. So when I use my form as a literal string, what if I have a typo, okay? What if my keyboard bounced, and now I have two M's, and I'm in a big hurry, I did not catch that. What would happen?
Nothing will happen other than your program will never work.
Exactly, it's a silent trap.
Yeah.
Well, it is, yeah, in this case it is completely silent because you're checking the existence, okay? Which is not good, okay? Because when you visually inspect your program, it's really hard to catch typos or spelling mistakes like that. So instead of doing this, I'm going to do it like this. What about that? Someone may argue and say, but you can still have the typo here and have double M when you refer to a variable. Yes, I can, but this will generate an error. Okay? Okay, so I'm going to do it right the first time and just make sure the form works the way it's supposed to, and then I will introduce the error. So all I want to do here is really just to differentiate between these two cases and have one to print. Okay, in this case, this is the first time somebody just landed on this page. Okay, so I would just say Congratulations. Now enter the fields. Okay. In other words, I know this is the first time somebody landed on this page, and I'm not expecting the fields to be formed, to be done already. In the other one, I'm going to say, thanks for clicking the submit button. Okay. At this point, I don't know whether I should scold the end user or not, because I'm not even checking whether the other fields are filled in or not. But I know for sure, almost for sure, that the user is on this page because somebody clicked the submit button. Is that okay?
Yes.
Right? My form equal to submit.
Yeah, well, but this set is probably a good check already, because the only reason why it is set but not submit, submit query is because somebody just massaged the URL. Okay. Okay, so are we doing okay so far with this code? Do we understand the logic of this code at this point? Okay, so everything here is dependent on what is the function of is set. Function not as in the sense of a function in programming, but what is the purpose of is set. Okay, it checks whether something in the parentheses, whether it is there or not. Is the bottle there? I don't care about the content of the bottle. I don't care about the value of the variable. Is the variable defined? Is that okay? All right? Okay, so I'm going to go back to my script here, and I'm going to refresh. So when I refresh, does it count as submitting, or does it not? Does it count as the first time I'm here and not because of the submitting?
The first time.
First time I'm here. Okay, so which message should I be seeing? Congratulations. Okay?
Yes, sorry.
Okay? All right, so that's our expectation. So let's do it and see what happens. And it says congratulations, which is proper. Okay? So if I click the submit button, okay, look at the URL here. If I click submit query, you can see that the query itself reflects that. Okay, you can't see it here, but I can kind of move over here. You can see that inside the query, it has my form equals to submit plus, which is the space, query. But I'm using that to help me decide, oh, you just click the submit button. Yep.
I know, submit query, submit plus query is the default value.
Mhm.
But in my program, sometimes it is showing submit plus query, and
Mhm.
sometimes it is just showing submit. So what is the secret for that?
The value. Okay, so getting back to the URL, you can see that this is the name of the get variable.
Right.
This is the key, right?
Yeah.
This is the value of your key.
Right.
So if you don't specify the value of a submit, type, then this is the default value. But you can always specify a particular value. So let's go ahead and change this to specify a value. So over here, in addition to saying name equals to da da da, I can say value equals to yada yada. Yada. There we go. Okay, and we'll try this form again. So we go back here and we say refresh, and in fact we're gonna get rid of all of this and then click the submit button again, and you can see that not only is the button itself changed to yada yada, but the value of that particular get variable is also changed to yada yada. Yep.
It also depends on the browser. Chrome just has submit instead of submit query.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Yeah.
If you do not specify.
Right.
If you
Yeah.
do not specify, yeah, that must
Yeah.
be then.
Yeah, because what is transmitted to the browser is really just the raw HTML, which is saying, okay, here's a submit button, but I'm not specifying the value. So different browsers, decides to initialize it with different values. So in the case of Firefox, it wants to use submit query as the value of the button and also the text on the button itself. But on Chrome, it just says submit. Okay, well that's interesting. I didn't know about it.
And then this is what happened.
So that's why the value of the button is not really that useful. The existence of that particular key is important, because regardless of the browser, it will take up a space here. Is that okay? All right. So if I want to check and scold the end user and say that, hey, how come f name is empty? You hit the submit button. You're supposed to fill in every single one of these text fields. And if I want to complain about it, where do I complain in the code?
Where you said thanks for clicking.
Okay, between which two lines should I insert some code to check and then scold the end user?
First
After,
if.
no, after else and
Line numbers. Line numbers.
Line number between 20 and 21.
Between 20 and 21 is the right place to put another conditional statement to check whether those get variables are empty or not. Okay, so let's analyze this program because this is really important. Okay, because I don't want to just give you the code so that someone can just copy and paste it into their own code in the same situation. I want to explain how it works so that you know the mechanism. Then you can adapt and say, oh, I know the tools of how to do it. Now I can apply the tools to solve other problems. Okay. So it is important to comment the program in this case. So in this case, I can say that my form is not set. Okay. Now, it's not set simply means it does not exist. Okay. So this means we got here not because someone clicked the submit button. Is that okay? So I want to put these into the comments because I want to I want the program itself to be somewhat self-documenting. But the key here is the isSet function applied to a get variable. Okay, so those two things combined is what makes this program, what makes this code functional. That makes it work. Okay, so as we said before, so in the else, I might want to put in some comments here as well and say that my form is set, which means it exists. But this means we got here because someone clicked the submit button. Okay, so at the beginning of the block of code, I put in some comments. So this way, it reminds me, like 3 days from today, okay, I can look at this code and not know, okay, what is this doing here? But if I have comments, 3 days from today, I can look at this block of code and go like, oh, so in order to get to this block of code, somebody has to click the button, and that's why we are here. Is that okay? Gotcha. Okay. So when we are here, we know that somebody clicked the submit button. Now we can do some processing with the fields, okay, the text fields. Now the text fields are interesting because the text fields always will be reported unlike radio buttons or checkboxes. If you don't click on a single checkbox or click on a single radio button, it does not appear on the URL, and therefore it does not even exist. But text fields are always there, okay? It's just empty. So the way you check for invalid input with checkboxes is different from the way you detect problems with empty text fields. Is that okay so far or not? Okay. So in this case, this is redundant. I really don't have to do this, but I'm going to check it anyway. So the first thing I'm going to do is to say isSet $_get f name. Okay, so $f name. Okay, we got those variables. There we go. We do something with the if, and then we do something with the else. Okay, this is the way I program. Okay, every time I use the conditional statement, I don't just think, oh, I have something to do if the condition is true. I always put in the curly braces for both the then branch, which is line 28, 29, and also the else branch, which is 31 and 32. Okay, because hey, if I don't really have anything to do with the else, I can just leave it empty. Okay, but if I do need to insert any code later on, like 2 weeks from today, I don't have to worry about the braces or whether the else is at the right place or not. Is that okay so far? Okay. Okay. So I think it's kind of important to kind of stay with the topic that I'm talking about here, because if we are not looking at this and understanding it, then this is It's going to be just, I know it's being recorded, you can always watch it later, but it's not the same as when you're trying to understand it here, and you can ask questions when you think, okay, but I'm not getting this part. Okay, so if I get into this block of code, it means fname is present, but it may be empty. Okay, stop right there, right? How can it be present but empty? It's an empty string. Okay, I have a bottle, but there's nothing inside. But at least the bottle is there. What about the else case? Fname is absent. It's not even there. I cannot even ask the question, is it empty? When you do not have a bottle, like right now, can you answer the question, is the bottle empty? No, because there's no bottle. So are we doing okay so far differentiating between the existence of the bottle versus is the bottle empty? Okay, that's really important, you know, when it comes to processing forms and reporting the errors correctly. Okay. Should we even get here, this particular else branch, if someone is only using the web interface and using the browser and not messing around with the get, the URL itself, should we even get to line 33? We should not, because it's a text field. Okay, if it's a text field inside a form, it is always submitted. It always exists. As long as the submit button itself exists, the text field should always exist. Okay, so if I get here, I might want to print a message to reflect the fact that, hey, I'm not even supposed to get here. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Print, but wait, I am not supposed to get here. Exactly what I said. Because the button is clicked, but there's no text field. It does not exist. Over here, I can just complain, okay? Okay. Are you too lazy to fill in the first name? Okay. Now, of course, in the real form, you don't want to be that pointy or snappy. You might want to just say, you know, please, you know, enter your first name, okay, or something along that line. But I'm not, you know, doing this, you know, to be published, so I can just use, you know, whatever message I want to use here. Okay. So we're gonna run this again. Okay.
You're gonna move your line 26
Huh?
somewhere else.
Line 26.
Yeah.
No, I want to keep it there.
Why?
I want to keep it there because this will be printed first. Thanks for clicking the submit button. Will be printed first, so that I know that somebody clicked the form. Then it will print one of these two to say that, are you too lazy to fill in the first name? Or, but wait, I'm not supposed to be here. Because I want to, you know, show the flow of the logic to the class, so I'm leaving some breadcrumbs along the way. Okay. All right. I hope no one is gluten sensitive. You guys are not getting it, you know, crumbs of bread, gluten. Okay. All right, so we're going to start this again, but this time I will start without anything in the URL, and it prints the right message. Congratulations, now enter the fields. So I'm going to enter nothing, okay? So I'm just going to click yada yada. So this time I got scolded because thanks for clicking the submit button, but are you too lazy to fill in the first name? Because you found out that it exists, but it's empty. Okay, cool. How can I display the other message? I'm not even supposed to be here. I have to hand edit this part and get rid of the fname field. So if I get rid of this one, then it should print that message. So press the enter key. Now it says, but wait, I'm not supposed to be here because fname does not exist at this point. It's not empty because I cannot even say whether it's empty or not because it doesn't exist. Is that okay? Okay. So if you did your homework assignment but you did not make full use of the if set with the name of the submit button, versus the values of the individual fields. Don't worry, I'm not going to be too stringent on checking those things. Okay, your grade is important, but it's not the most important thing. Okay, because if you think about it, you're in this class to learn how to code in PHP. Okay, your grade is really just telling you, did you learn enough at the end of the semester? That's all it means. Okay, but it is important to understand how this works. Are we still doing okay so far? I haven't answered that one question that I have asked a little bit earlier. Why did I use variables, the dollar something, to store the literal strings? Because it seems like I'm not saving a whole lot. I am saving a little bit, not a whole lot. Because by using $fname instead of quote fname end quote, I save one keystroke every time I use fname. Woohoo! But that's not the reason.
I know there must be a very good reason to do this.
So the reason is, what if my keyboard bounced and I type in double E? What do you think is going to happen then?
It will tell you that the variable doesn't exist.
Okay, did I define fname with 2 E's?
No.
No. And as a result, PHP will complain about it. It's not a fatal error. It is not as if the page won't get generated or anything, but it will give you that undefined variable yada yada on, not yada, fname with double E on line 27. Okay, let's check it. So over here, I refresh the page. Okay, I think, oh, we have to give it something because otherwise it keeps complaining. There we go. Uh-oh, it's not complaining. This is line 27. Did I save? Maybe I didn't save. I didn't save. Okay, classic error. You do a bunch of changing of the code, you fix a few problems, and then you forgot to save, and then you run the script again. You go like, how come it's not changing? Okay, so this is good. Okay, it's telling me that I have an undefined variable, fname with double E in this particular code on line 27. Cool. Yep.
What I encountered was if I tried to do $_get before I checked is set, it gave me an index error. So what's the deal with that?
Okay, so can you tell me more about your scenario?
Okay, so see, look, now you're seeing.
It depends on how you use it. Are you using it to initialize another variable?
Right.
That will be a problem. So the
So
only
like
thing you
what-
really can do when it doesn't exist is
So let's
set.
say, for example, like right up on the top where you add your variables, I say $fname equal
Right.
to.
You have to
underscore
check
whatever,
first
yeah.
before you assign.
So that's what I realized, that I
Right.
have to check it first.
Yep. But this is the reason why I use variables, PHP variables, to store the strings corresponding to the keys of the form. Okay, are we okay with this or not? Because these are little things that can save you a lot of time down the line. Because if I don't use this approach, okay, if I don't use this approach, and I just use quotes everywhere, okay, with double E, it would take me a long time to figure out what is wrong with my program. Because there's no error message. PHP could not help me. Okay? It's just a logic error. In this case, it will keep complaining and say, it will keep complaining to say, but wait, I'm not supposed to be here. Because nowhere in the form is going to define fname with double E. Then I have to go through the code and and check the logic. The logic is for the most part right. It's just a typo. It's a spelling mistake. So if you have to spend a lot of time to find spelling mistakes, it's not a good use of your time. So are we doing okay so far with the approach of not using literal strings, but use variables to refer to things that are recurring? Now in this code, if I choose to change the name of that particular field, I've only got one place to change, and the rest of the program is going to be okay. Okay, so let's say fname, in some dialect is obscene. Okay, some people say that, oh, this is not a good word to use. Okay, what am I going to do? I will go back here. I'm not going to change my PHP code except for one line. I will go back here. Instead of using fname, I'll just change this to given name. I don't have to change anywhere else in this program, because everywhere else in this program is only referring to this variable. Is that okay so far?
Yeah.
So these are little programming techniques that are not specific to web scripting at all. Okay, it is something that you can use in any type of programming. Can be COBOL programming, can be C programming, can be PHP programming, can be Python programming. I don't really care. Can be JavaScript programming. It's just techniques that we are talking about here. Yep.
I noticed that there was a difference in receiving those undeclared errors. So I did a little research on it, and so it says that PHP does not require a variable declaration, but it does issue a very low-level error e-notice.
Yep.
One that's not even reported by default.
Yep, I turned it on.
I knew you did.
Yep.
Yeah,
I
but
cranked
you
up.
need to turn it off, right?
I turned up the nagging level. I turned it on, the nagging level from wife to grandma, and then now it's all the way to grandma.
I'm used to it from JavaScript. But you could turn it off also. I found that you can that there is also a way to turn it off.
Oh, yeah, you can turn it off inside your own code.
Yeah.
There's a way to turn on and turn off in your own code. But at this point, for this class, I recommend that we just keep it the way it is. Now, what if when I'm grading your assignment and these things keep popping up, undefined da-da-da, undefined da-da-da, I'm going to ignore that, okay? So I would just check your scripts, based on the functionality that is described in the assignment itself. If the assignment doesn't say anything about you should not have any undefined messages, I'll just turn a blind eye, okay? Does it mean it is not important? Not at all. It simply means that for grading purposes, it is only fair that I ignore those messages if the assignment itself does not specify that you have to get rid of all of those messages. But they are still important because they can point out, like here, okay, when I made that mistake to refer to fname with double E, it printed that message. Was that important? It is very important. It pointed me straight to where the error is, and I fixed it right away. So you don't want those messages to be floating around. You want to get rid of all of those undefined messages, okay? It's just that for grading purposes, to be fair, I'm not going to take points off because of those messages. Yep.
This might be too broad of a question, so if it is,
give it a shot.
Ignore it, like if it's too broad. But I'm trying to basically test everything you're writing there on here to see if I understand it. And was what he was talking about be a reason that I might be getting that the very first part of this code being my form equals my form.
Right.
I get the undefined index error with that, and I've just noticed that you aren't getting that error, and I really can't tell what the difference
Which part?
is.
I
The
think
part
she's-
where it's my form equals my form, the very first line.
I think
number
she's
5.
talking about the same error that I asked you about.
This one would not be a problem, but the next one would.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This thing.
Well, mine's telling me that it's on the. Oh wait, never mind. Yeah, it is.
It
on
is
the
this one.
end.
It's still undefined index. Yeah.
This will
Yeah,
generate
that's
a problem.
exactly what I have going
Yeah.
on.
That would have a problem. And I saw a few scripts with a confusion between the name of the field versus the value of the field. So you have to differentiate which one is the key and which one is the value. Okay, so in this case, my form is really the key, and then my form value is the value corresponding to that key if the key existed in the URL. Is that okay? So, okay, just to illustrate that how this can be a problem, okay, so I make sure I save it, okay, I'm pretty sure I saved it already. And I refresh, okay, so let me go back and remove all the get variables from here, and press the enter key, and it still complains about line 6 because of that. because you're taking something that is non-existent and you're trying to use that value to initialize another variable. That is why it is causing a problem. So you have to check first if you want to get rid of this message. But when you're checking it, okay, you're actually putting a conditional statement in your code that can check for additional problems. Because if it is not set, maybe there's something you need to do if it is not there. In this case, if it's not there, I'm supposed to say congratulations. But that's the code that we have later on to do just that. All right, so are we doing okay so far with the forms assignments, all the scripts related to the forms? Yep.
Something from last week which you mentioned, but I couldn't find it when I tried to review the lecture. And that was how do you retain the value that you enter? So like
you changed the value. Okay, so that's a good question. Let me illustrate that again. Okay, so let me repeat the question because I don't think the mic picks up all the way from there. So the question was, if you want the form to retain its existing value when somebody is missing one thing,
you mentioned in last week's lecture.
It's the value attribute. So what you want to do is to, in this case, it's a little bit tricky. Well, in this case, it's actually not tricky at all. But you can do it like this. Okay, you can do it like this. F name value. I'm not sure whether I want to do it this way. I'll throw this out. Okay, if you don't understand what this means and want to kind of use the alternative form, that's fine. But I'm going to throw it out anyway. Okay. Okay. And I'm going to do L name in a slightly different way, okay? So with the L name, I'm going to do the kind of more conventional way. Okay, so I'm going to put some empty lines here just so that it is separated, okay? So line 8 is doing the same logic to F name as line 10 all the way down to line 17 to L name, okay? So the questions that you guys are having right now is, what's up with that question mark, right? The question mark is called a ternary operator. Okay, the question mark combined with a colon is called a ternary operator. This is the way it works. So with a ternary operator, the first part, which is the part before the question mark, which is this part here, is a condition. Okay, it's just a condition saying, is it true or is it false? Okay, if it is true, then it will evaluate the second portion, which is the part between the question mark and the colon, and return that as the value of the entire expression. If the condition is false, then it will go to the third part, which is the part that is to the right-hand side of the colon, evaluate that, and then return it as the value of the expression. In other words, it is an if-then-else as an expression. Okay? So once again, let me repeat that. It has got three parts. Okay? The first part, which is the part to the left-hand side of the question mark, is a condition. It is always evaluated first. If the condition is true, then it will evaluate the middle part, which is the part between the question mark and the colon, and then return the value of that middle part as the value of the entire expression. If the first part is false, it will go to the last part, which is the part to the right-hand side of the colon, and return the value of that last part as the value of the entire expression. It's called a ternary operator, and you can find it online. I'm going to search for that just so that we know that ternary operator. So it exists in just about any programming language, and I'm pretty sure PHP has it as well, because PHP stole a lot of syntax from C. Okay, so I'm pretty sure that is the case. Okay, yep, go ahead.
No. So now you have the value in a variable called value. Then how does it go into the text string?
Well, we'll get to that part. Yes.
The is set is only checking to see if the key is there, the
Right.
value is still blank.
Right.
So
If-
would you use empty is not empty?
I don't need to use that, because what happens here is this is going to be either true or false, right? Depending on whether the bottle is there or not.
Right, but if it's there, but it could still be empty.
Correct. It can be.
So then you can't, you're not saving the value that you.
Oh, but this is not the part to save the value and redisplay it. This is the part that I'm getting. Did the URL specify a value for f name and a value for l name? This is only trying to figure out, did I have a value to begin with? I'm not using it yet.
Okay.
Okay, so you guys have exactly the same question, which is, okay, how is this going to help with, redisplaying the value that is already submitted? Okay, this is not the part to deal with it entirely. This is just the part to get back what is already submitted. Is that okay? If nothing is submitted, it's empty string. Okay? So if you don't like the idea of a ternary operator, it's probably okay, unless you have to maintain the code of somebody else who decides that I like to use ternary operators, and I'm going to sprinkle ternary operators everywhere in the program. And that happens in life, unfortunately. So you might want to understand it nonetheless, even though you may not want to use it in your own code. Okay? So, but line 8 is doing exactly the same thing as line 10 all the way down to line 17, which is the longer and more spelled out version to do exactly the same thing. It's a true conditional statement. On line 10, I'm checking the condition. Is set underscore get L name. Does it exist? Is the bottle there? Okay? If so, we go to line 12 and say, okay, if the bottle is there, pour the content of that bottle into my cup, which is the local variable name, not local, but the local variable, the variable called L name value. Okay? If the bottle does not exist, then I go to line 16 and say, well, we didn't have a value. Let's just make it an empty string. Is that okay? So the focus right now is, does everybody understand how line 8 really has the same logic as line 10 to line 17? One is kind of spelled out and easier to read, which is the spelled out version. The other one on line 8 is kind of obscure because we have never seen it before, okay? But once you get used to it, it is actually very powerful because it is taking the place, you're basically using a conditional statement, but in a place where an expression is expected. Where do you expect an expression? The right-hand side of an assignment, when you pass parameters to a function, many places, okay? So it does give you the ability to make your code more compact and also more elegant, okay? So we'll look at this again, okay? In the future, when we have an opportunity to look at this, we'll definitely point out, how to use the ternary operator, like this. Okay, but getting back to what we really wanted to do in the first place. So what I need to do now is inside the input field, inside the form, I'm going to say value equals to, okay, backslash, quote, $f name value, backslash quote. That is how we can get the name already submitted to make it reappear in the form. And we can
typo in the variable there.
Okay, we'll let PHP complain about it.
Okay.
Because that's the whole point. I want to illustrate how powerful this thing is. But you're right. Okay, I did misspell that. right, save the file, go back to the browser, let it complain, right? So refresh, and it says undefined variable L name, da 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 da, and undefined variable F name value, which is, you know, with the typo here. And L name is supposed to be defined on line 10. So what is going on with line 10 here? Oh, I for whatever reason, I removed the definition of L name. I probably typed your DD, you know, on the wrong line. But that's the whole point, okay? If PHP can figure out something and check for you and say, okay, there's a problem here, it's a good thing, okay? The last thing we want would be problems that PHP cannot check. And there are plenty of those already. So I will change this one to family name, which is okay, perfectly okay. Because remember, I only have one place to change. If I choose to change the name of the field, I only have one place to change. And the rest of this script is staying consistent. Yes?
Now you have two variables last name. It didn't disappear at the bottom of your line 19.
Line 19. Oh, okay. So I inserted the new code at the wrong place. That's why. Yep. Good catch there. There we go. So we have to put it back here. That's the right place to put it. And then we just have to fix this one. Like that. Oh, I didn't mean to exit from the editor, but that's okay. Refresh, no problems. Okay, so now we need to test it. So I will forget to put in the first name, but we'll put in the last name. Okay, and I click the yada yada button. What do you think would be the message? It will say, thank you for submitting, but then it will scold me and say, are you too lazy to enter the first name, right? Because the first name is not entered. And then on top of that, my last name will still be in the text field, right? Okay, so that's the expected behavior. It may or may not do that, but it do that. Okay, so all right, is that okay?
Yes.
So how do you highlight, a field in the form to highlight and say that this is the one that has a missing value? Kind of the same thing, okay, except you use conditional statements around each input field to say that, if this is missing or something is not wrong with it, change the color of only that single input. So is that okay so far with all this? Okay. All right. So I think it's time to move on to functions, unless there are additional questions about forms. Nope. So we are good with forms? Okay. So let's move on to functions. And someone said that there's no upload or there's no link here. So we can fix that later. I'm not too concerned about that. Oh, okay. That is interesting. I probably used the wrong link, that's all. So let's see.
You are planning for this week.
Okay.
If you go to the loops assignment sheet, we can just change the URL. She found
Okay. Or any one of those, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know the number? Huh?
1227.
1227, thank you. 1227. Well, you guys are becoming hackers. Because that's exactly how hackers do it, okay? So you notice, the get variables in a URL, let's say you're shopping or doing something, and then you just kind of mess with it, okay? Just make sure they don't have your credit card on file first, or your PayPal account, already hooked up, so that you can just kind of play with that stuff and find out what happens. You can do the same thing with D2L, not D2L, but Canvas. See how Canvas has, module, item, number, blah, blah, blah? You can tweak those things. Now, if it does the job correctly, if the module belongs not to this class, it probably will come back and just complain that you're not in the right class or you don't have access to it. But if they forget to check that, then you might get access to modules of some other classes that you are not taking. Let's check it out. I'm interested. Okay, so that's the other homework assignment, as it turns out. Yep. It is working. And then the other thing would be this part here. So anything that looks like this, are basically, invitation to so that you can change it a little bit. Now, if this is not using a get, request, but instead if it's using a post request, you cannot see it on the URL. But there are add-ons of Firefox that you can install so that before a request is sent out, it gives you a chance to examine every single thing first. And then you get a chance to tweak anything that you want before the request is actually sent.
What was the code again for the assignment, for this assignment?
Oh, okay, sorry. I got a little bit too carried away. It's 1227.
1227, okay.
Yep. So I'm gonna have to change this assignment back. Let's see. Well, because the assignment is not there, I gotta give you guys more time to do it. Yep.
Actually, I was thinking about it.
That's okay. It's not a problem. Okay, we just replaced the whole link. That's it. There we go. So now it should be good.
The same thing is true for the blogger.
The blogger?
Yeah.
Huh. I wonder why. Because I was just copying and pasting from what Carol gave me. Okay, well we'll fix that one later. Yeah, we'll deal with it. We'll deal with this one first. All right. Okay, so you do have that function now. I will give you guys until midnight next Thursday to get it done. Okay, I don't think it will take that long. Okay. So the first thing we want to know is what is a function? Did you guys read about what a function is? Because that part is working. Okay. So what is a function?
Basically, it's part of your code that you intend to use over and over. So you.
Okay, I like that. It's your code that you intend to use over and over again.
Right.
Which is one reason to use a function, not the only, but that's one reason why you want to use a function, is only write the code once, and then you can trigger the execution of that code anytime you want to, anywhere within your program. Okay, so that's one reason why you want to use functions. A function always has a name, so that you can refer to that function, okay? And it can take on parameters, it can return a value. So are those concepts okay? I mean, because if you have read the notes, that should be okay. If you have not, it's the time to kind of read the notes, okay? Are those concepts okay so far? Okay. So maybe I can just use a program to illustrate, okay, what functions can do. Is that all right? Okay. So what we'll do is, I'm lazy, okay? I'm just going to use something that is already here. Okay. All right. So I'm going to write a function here, and you can define functions anywhere within your PHP code. Now that is not true for most other programming languages. Okay, like in C, you cannot define a function just anywhere you want to. Okay, because there's no such thing as any place that is not inside a function. Okay, so can I help you guys over there? Anything? Oh, okay. I can show you that.
So
You mean the function assignment?
No, notes.
Notes. On functions? On functions?
Yeah.
That should be linked in the modules.
Yeah, we just found it.
Oh, okay, great. Okay. All right. So, it is in her notes here. Yep.
So are we making, for the basic function, are we making another PHP file to pull up the function?
No, you do not have to. Although you can make the functions live in another file, which is also what most people do, especially when you have a lot of functions that you want to reuse from one page to another page. Okay, so that's when you want to use the include. But no, it doesn't have to be like that. So I'm going to illustrate how to use a function here. Okay, so I'm just saying, function, and you can see the name, function itself is in dark blue, which means it is a keyword. Okay, and now we say form element. Okay, and well, I will make it simple first. Okay, I will just say,
check name. So
print hello. Okay. So this is as simple as it goes for a function. Okay, you start with the keyword function to tell PHP what follows is the definition of a function, and then you give it the name of the function. In this case, the name of the function is called print hello, and then it's mandatory to supply the open and the close parentheses. Okay, so you have to have that. Later on, we'll talk about what can go in there, but right now we're not gonna use those parentheses. And then you can specify code here. You can say print, okay, in a deep voice, hello, hello. Okay, for those of you who have taken Iraj's classes, you know what I'm talking about. All right, so now we have a function defined with a name of print hello, with only one single statement inside, that will print, in a deep voice, hello, hello. Okay, doesn't do a single thing, right? Okay, so I'm going to run the program now. Rerun the script and see what happens. Okay, refresh. Hey, where is that printing? It's not here. How come?
You haven't called it.
I haven't called it. Exactly. So when you define a function, the definition of the function doesn't do a single thing. Okay? In order to do what the function definition includes, you have to call it first. Okay? You can say call, you can say invoke, you can say trigger. Okay? So those are common words to refer to the activation of the code inside the definition of a function. Is that okay so far?
Yes.
All right, cool. So now you can go back to this code and go like, okay, fine. We'll print it out here. Okay. In fact, we'll put it inside a tag. So I'm gonna do this. Okay. I'll put this inside h1 tag and h1 element. Okay. Oh, I cannot do that. I'll show you how to do that one later, but I cannot do it from here, the way I define it. Okay. So I'm sandwiching the call to print hello, which is just the name of the subroutine followed by open and close parentheses. And there's nothing inside the parentheses because it's not expecting anything. And then I print it between the two tags, one to open the h1 element, one to close the h1 element. So what is going to happen here is the first line, okay, I'm going to move the cursor here. So this line is going to print the open element. Then we're going to call the subroutine. This is the calling of the subroutine. You're just referring to the name of the subroutine and then open and close parentheses. So this will go, execution of the program will go into the subroutine, do whatever is inside the subroutine, and then we'll get back almost here. Okay? Most people say that it will get back here, but that is not true. It will actually go to the next line. If it gets back to the same line, it will just keep printing that, right? So it actually goes, it knows where to continue execution, so it will continue to execute a program onto this line and print the end tag of the h1 element. Is that okay?
Yes.
Let's go ahead and check it out. So Iraj, are you here? Yes, he is in fact here. Is that okay? But that seems like some extra code that, we didn't have to do this, right? We could have just say, print, in double quotes, and so on and so forth, the place that I made the call. But what if I want to do this everywhere, a lot of times, right? What if I want to do this whenever I complain? Okay, so right here, we are detecting some problems, right? So I will put it here. Yep.
Actually, when you did all this, I just thought about the function, the other reason that you use function.
Okay, go ahead.
That is the program abstraction and encapsulation.
Yep.
That you don't want to read the code how you did it, so you just by the function then you figure out, okay, so it's printing the name. So you don't care about rest logic in that
Yep.
function, so it makes the program
Yep.
easier to read.
Yeah. So just to repeat your point, functions serve mainly two different purposes. They can be the same. The program can use both reasons to use functions. Okay. So the first one is you want to trigger the execution of the same code from multiple places of your program. Okay. So that's one reason. The second reason is to organize your code. Okay. So you don't want to make something that has like six levels of indentation. A conditional statement inside the loop, which is inside another loop, which is inside a conditional statement, which is inside another loop, which is inside a conditional statement. Okay, that makes it very hard to debug. So functions allow you to break off some of that code, okay, into its own subroutine, into a function. So now you're collapsing a block of code into a single function call, and that makes your program a lot easier to understand. So let's just say that you have a rule and say that, okay, in each chunk of code, I do not have more than 3 levels of indentation. With functions, that's possible. Okay, so you can make each function only have about 3 levels of indentation or nesting of logic construct. But then the call of that function can be inside another 3 levels of control structure inside another function. And that second function can be called inside another function with its own 3 levels of control structure and so on. So each level only has 3 levels of indentation or 3 levels of control structure, but because one function can call another function, which in return can call yet another function and so on, you can now implement logic that is really, really complicated, but each chunk of code stays simple. Why 3 levels of indentation? How many things can you track at the same time? That's the limitation. Okay?
I think it's 7, isn't it? Things that you do count.
Well, maybe 7 for you, but it's 3 for me. So depending on how many things you can track at the same time, that really limits how many levels of control structure you should focus on in each block of code. Okay? There's a second requirement. Okay? Most people ignore this one, including myself sometimes. How many lines can you fit on the screen at once? That is the other physical limitation. Let me switch back to show you what I mean. This terminal only has about 25 lines. Okay? So if I write a block of code that spans over 250 lines of code, guess what? To go from the beginning of the outermost control structure to the end of the same block, I have to page down 9 times. Okay? If I have to track things, that is going on, something is happening at the beginning of that control structure, something is happening at the end of that control structure, it is really hard to track because I have to page up, page down, I have to match the indentation and all kinds of stuff like that. Okay? So if you keep your function, each one to be about 20 lines or so that fits on one single screen, then you can see the entire definition of the function without having to page up and page down. Okay, so that's another kind of physical limitation that you might want to observe when you write your functions. Is not to make it too long so that you have to keep paging up and paging down to go to the beginning and the end of the blocks. Are we doing okay so far with the rationale of using functions? So getting back to this one, I have in a deep voice print hello hello, and over here we have the opening being in a deep voice hello hello. Okay, but when we have an error message to print, we'll also say that. Okay, thanks for clicking the submit button. In a deep voice hello hello. Are you too lazy to fill in the first name? Is that okay? Now, the other thing that is really kind of nice about using a function is it can take parameters. Okay? So what do we mean by parameters? It is kind of like variables, but not like real variables. You can put those variables, a list of variables, inside the parentheses where the cursor is. Okay, so I'll go ahead and put in one thing here. You can put in as many things as you want, but I'm just using one at this time. Okay, so I'm going to put in message, huh?
First name is dollar reference.
Nope, I'm just going to put in message here, and I'm just going to say this is message. Okay, so I'm repeating the same short message twice. So what used to be hello, 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 is now just message. Okay? So I can substitute hello with wait, right? I can substitute with WTF. I can substitute it with syntax error, and so on. Okay? So let's check out how this will work out. So in the first one, because we are really just at the beginning of this entire form, I'm going to say welcome, welcome. Okay, now it's going to use uppercase W in both cases. There's a way to fix that. I'm not going to bother to. I'm not bothering to do that at this point. Okay. And then when we complain about the error, which is down here, we'll say wait. Wait. There's an error. Okay? Is that okay? So let's go ahead and run this code again. Okay. So right here, refresh. Okay? So you can see how the parameter allows me to use most of the same program, the same logic in the subroutine, but now I can quote-unquote parameterize it so that the parameter can change the behavior just a little bit, but sometimes it can be a lot, depending on how you make use of the parameter. Are we still doing okay so far with this stuff?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Are there any questions? No questions? All right.
If we have more than one parameter, then when we want to pass the value, do we separate them by comma, like one
Yep.
has
Well, let's go ahead and check out how to do that. All right, so we'll go back to this code, and we say, okay, what if we want multiple parameters? Okay. Okay, so I'm going to use kind of voice here as my first parameter, and then use message as my second parameter. So in some kind of voice, repeat the message twice. Okay, so now we have to apply two parameters in order to use this function. Is that okay? So in order for the program to do exactly the same as what it did before, now I have to specify something else for kind of voice. Okay, we'll try to keep it the same thing, deep here. All right, but when we complain and say wait, okay, how about resentful? Okay, because we are complaining. So refresh. So in the deep voice, we say hello, hello, welcome, welcome, welcome. And then when we detect an error, we'll say in a resentful voice, wait, are you too lazy to fill in the first name? Is that okay? What if most of the time you just want to use deep for the first one and you want to use hello for the second one? So that, okay, this is usually how I want to set it up, but occasionally I want to change it. You can use default values for parameters. Okay? That is really kind of cool. Okay, so let me show you how to do that. Okay, you can see parameters are really kind of a special kind of variable. Okay, it really is in fact a variable, except the value of those variables are determined by the caller. Okay, the line that calls the subroutine is the line that determines the initial value of those variables. Let me illustrate what I mean by that. Okay, show you the line numbers so we can refer to lines one by one. So when you look at line 10 is called the caller of the subroutine. Okay, it is calling the subroutine itself. So as the caller, it is really initializing the parameters. And you can look at parameters as quote-unquote variables in this case. So kind of voice as a variable gets the value of deep because of line 10. The variable called message on line 5 is getting the value of welcome because of line 10. Sorry? In that order, yes. So it is ordered like that. Now, if I want to use default values, I just have to put an equal here. Okay? You can say kind of voice, okay, I don't know, angry. Okay? And in a message, what kind of words do you think Darth Vader uses a lot?
Luke, I am your father.
Or in the case of grading, you can say, I can ask, do you think you have been treated unfairly? You guys remember the scene? He was in the Sky City thing, and he was changing the deal, and then the guy was complaining a little bit, and then Vader said, perhaps you think you have been treated unfairly, and the guy just kind of stopped saying anything. No, that's not what I want you guys to do. I'm just kidding here. Okay, so give me something for message as an initial value, as a default value.
Hey.
Hey. That's a difficult one. Okay, let's find something that's easier. Okay, I think happy has easier messages, right? So when people are happy, what do they usually say? Woohoo? Okay, how do you spell woohoo? How do you spell it?
Y-O-O-H-O-O.
Y-O-O-U-H-O-O? Yoo-hoo.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I will take it. Okay, we'll capitalize the first one. There we go. So perhaps we should print this in the congratulations. Okay, so we'll say print message. Nope, print hello. That's a misnomer now because that's not exactly printing hello every single time, is it? But this time I'm not giving it anything. So if you don't give a subroutine that has parameters anything, then it is going to rely on the default values. In this case, the default value of kind of voice is happy, and the default value of message is woohoo. Okay? All right, so let's check it out. Go back here. The refresh is not going to work this time because this is not the point to print out congratulations. So we have to take out all the parameters, and now we have it's not doing it. Oh, classic error. I forgot to save. There we go. All right. Is that okay? So we have illustrated just about everything that you can do with functions, except for return values.
Yes, I was just going to answer that, because like some languages, they have the same function with different number of variables. So one variable, two variables, three variables.
I don't think PHP can do that. But you can use default values to sort of emulate that. Yeah, you can emulate, but it doesn't have the true variable number of parameters like C and C++.
Right, and the other question is, returning values, can you return more than one value?
Haha, that's a good question. Okay, let me repeat that question. The question is, can you return more than one values? And the answer is, sort of.
Probably you can create a string. And then
You can use an array.
Yeah.
You can return an array.
Okay.
So when you return an array, whatever is accepting or receiving the return value can either store that into a variable, then you can index it, or you can do whatever an array can do, such as in a for loop. You can stick it into a for each loop. The return value can be stuck into the first part of a for each loop if it is returning an array. Yep.
So I'm guessing that this call by value and call by reference would be like passing an array?
Okay, so you guys are asking some really, really high-level questions. So it's okay, I will answer that. I just want to point out so that the rest of the class understand that this is a little bit more advanced and they're not If they don't understand this part, it's okay, because this is a beginning class in programming. So the answer is yes, you can pass by reference in PHP, and you use the ampersand symbol in front of the name of the parameter when you define the subroutine to designate that one is passed by reference. Once it is passed by reference, then whatever change you make to that parameter inside the function is reflected in whatever is being passed as argument. So is that answering your question? Yeah. Okay, so for the rest of the class, don't worry if you don't understand what I've just said. Yep. Okay, so let's deal with returning a value. Okay, so we'll deal with, let's see here. Okay, so we want to make a function to return, let's say, a random value. How about that? Okay, so we'll say random, let's make it random color. Okay, so a random color function, unlike print hello, is serving a different purpose. Because print hello, from the name of the subroutine, you know that it's going to do something, right? It's printing something. Yeah. But in the case of random color, you're expecting it to return or to give you a color, that is random. Is that okay? Okay. So we'll go ahead and make it not very flexible at first, and then later on we can fix that. So I'm going to declare a variable here and just say, colors, okay? It is an array of strings where you can define these colors. Okay, we'll just have red, blue, green. Okay, maybe just these three. There we go. So I'm just going to randomly pick one of these three colors and return it. I do not need the next variable, but it helps to kind of use it here as a color. I can just use index here. It's a random color going from 0 to the number of items in colors as an array. Does anyone remember how to check the size of an array? Count. Okay, very good. So we say count colors -1. Because the indexes start with 0. So when you have 3 items in an array that has 3 items, the first item has an index of 0, the second item has an index of 1, the last item has an index of 2. So that means, in order to make a correct index into that particular array, I only want to limit the range from 0 to 2 inclusively. Okay, so that's why we have a -1 when we specify the end of that range. Well, when this is all done, I can just say return. So return is a special keyword. What return does is it will do 2 things. The first thing it does is to terminate the execution of the subroutine. It will just conclude and say, I'm done. Okay? But at the same time, it will also return a value. Okay? So in this case, let me specify which value I'm returning, which is $colors in square brackets, $index, like that, which is one of those 3 colors. It will return red, blue, or green, one of those 3. Okay? All right. How do we use it? Well, you can do it like this, okay? You can definitely just say random color. That's fine, except it doesn't do a single thing. Yeah. Because it is returning a value of red, green, or blue, but no one is using it.
You have to assign.
You can either assign it or you can use it inside a print. You can. It's returning a string. You can use the invocation of random color any place where a string is expected, which means it can be on the right-hand side of an assignment statement. That's cool. It can be inside a concatenation. That's cool. Anywhere you can expect a string, you can put random color as a call.
It should be a parameter. So we need a parameter.
We need a parameter? No, we don't need a parameter. It's just random. It's right now it doesn't have has a parameter. Okay, but we do want to use it. Let's say I want to change the color of the H1 to a random color. Okay, that's all I want to do. So I can do it this way. I can say style equals to, and then we specify color : and then we have another quote here. Okay, so this is a trick. Okay, I noticed that when I was grading some of the early assignments, I noticed that there are a few people who kind of miss the placement of quotes that really need to be inside the string. Okay, so the way to do this, the way I do this is I identify which part is the concatenation part. Okay, so we need another semicolon here. Okay. So once I have identified these 4 underscores are corresponding to the place where I need to have something, then what I do is I would just end the original quote, put a dot here, put this here, and then do the same thing here. Sorry, quote like that. Okay, so right now I haven't done a single thing except to turn one string into 3 strings with still underscores, right? But the middle one, the quoted string that has the 4 underscores, now I can just remove that part and substitute it with something else to specify a string. In other words, every time I want to cut a string into 2, I just insert quote dot quote to snip it. And then at the other place I need to snip, I would do the same thing. Insert quote dot quote. Is that okay? So whatever you're trying to snip out now has its own open and close quotes, and the concatenation symbols are there already. So now you can just kind of replace it with whatever you need. In other words, in this case, I can now take this out and replace it with random color, because random color is going to return a string that is in fact a color. So this way I won't miss whatever quote is supposed to be in the original string or get confused about that. Is that okay? Sort of? Okay, all right. Well, let's check out whether this code works or not. I have no idea. Oh, did I save? Nope. There we go. Yay. Yep, if you know how to do JavaScript, you can actually make it change automatically and all kinds of stuff like that. Yep. So do we have any questions at this point about random color as a function? The way random color is different from print hello is it doesn't do any printing itself. All it does is return a value, which is a string. Then the return value, which is taking the place of the call itself, can be placed anywhere a string is expected. In this case, inside concatenation. Are we still doing okay so far? Okay, yep.
So we cannot call the function within the quotes?
No, you cannot. Even double quotes cannot handle a function called inside. So you can only have variable references or at the most indexing of an array. And that's about all you can do inside the double quotes. Okay. Good question. Any other questions about functions? The basic idea of functions. I think I covered all of the basic idea of functions except, well, even the colors. Do you think I can access this variable colors from the rest of this program? The answer is no. Okay? Any variable that you create inside a subroutine cannot be used outside of that subroutine. Why not? There are 2 reasons. One is what we call a scoping issue, because the scope of colors, the one that I have highlighted, has a scope of the function. But that's not even the main reason. This variable does not even exist yet when you're looking at the rest of this program.
Yeah.
This is called a local variable. Any variable that you define or create inside a function, inside the code of a function, is called a local variable, as opposed to a global variable, which is like my form is one. Okay, my form, f name, l name, those are called global variables because they're defined outside of the context of a function. But anything that is defined inside the definition of function, like colors and index, only has a scope of inside that particular function. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's a very good thing.
It's a very, very good thing. Because this means I can reuse that name, index, in other functions.
Yeah.
Because every single one of those is different. Okay, they're actually unique to that function itself. Right. So how come this particular function is useful? Well, there are several things. First one is, if I want to add this, add brown to a color to it, is that one of the HTML colors, brown?
Yes.
Okay. So I can add brown, gold, or golden, gold?
Yes.
Gold. Okay, so we'll just add 2 more. And now everywhere, if I use random color, elsewhere in the program, all of those now have 2 additional colors. I change one definition, and the rest is okay. They get it. Okay. So are there any questions about this? No? Okay. Let's take a look at your homework assignment. Because I think we got all the key concepts. So now it is time to move on to your homework assignment. Okay, complete the following scripts below. This will require creating multiple web pages. Okay, kind of same thing. I haven't noticed anything different with the first part. Basic function. Write a function that will print a dynamic paragraph to the screen in bolded red text. I should be able to change the paragraph each time I call the function like this. In other words, it is using a single parameter to specify the actual text of the paragraph. So, do you guys feel comfortable with this one?
Yeah, you already did it.
I think Iraj helped us.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So, thank you, Iraj. Yep.
We skipped a little bit of the first part. It tells us to paste the function into a text area rather than putting. We usually submit a URL. In this particular homework, it asks us to paste.
Oh, okay. I missed that part. Okay, I didn't read carefully. Okay,
Yeah,
so when you turn this assignment in, you will also be required. So you will also be required to turn in the functions through the homework submission program. Okay, you will do this just by cutting and pasting them into the text area. This assignment requires the functions. There's no credit without them. Okay, so you would have to write the scripts and also turn in the functions. Okay, I can do that in Canvas, so I'll have to make sure that I enable that feature so you can paste into a text area. Okay, thank you for pointing that out. Yep.
Can you kind of go over that again? I'm still kind of lost on exactly what I'm supposed to do there.
Right.
With the
Assignment.
instruction here?
Submission, yeah.
Okay, so let me go back to,
Basic function.
right, so let me, oh, you mean, oh, okay, I see.
The way you can escape your code if you paste it in Dreamweaver and the design view, and that way you can show your PHP code in HTML because it escapes all your tags for you.
Okay.
So that could be an option too. If you had like one file for all your functions, you can see it and see all your functions.
Okay. Well, hold on. Let me see if I can do the same thing in Canvas. Okay. Submission type is online. Okay. So we want to click website URL, and we also want to specify text entry. So the text entry is not just plain text. It is HTML, but you can just copy and paste. As if it is just plain text. Okay. Yep.
How if we print it somewhere inside the page that we turn in? Like we print the actual function that we use.
You are copy and pasting the function definition.
No, would that be okay instead of
Pasting.
Yeah, it says that we should make that function that it should move. Also, we should print it that everyone can see which function that we use.
Okay, so let's read this carefully. You will turn in a single. Okay, this will require creating multiple web pages. So that part is the same as your previous homework assignments. You will turn in a single URL, just like in the previous homework assignments. However, okay, you will turn in a single URL, however, that has all these pages linked to it. Okay, so that's the same as before. Okay, can be separate page with just these links. Okay, that's fine, that's all the same. When you turn in this assignment in, you will also be required to turn in the functions. Okay, I'm gonna highlight this part. So you will do this by cutting and pasting, copy and pasting. I don't want you to cut. Copy and paste. Because if you cut and paste, that means it will disappear from your script. That would not be very pleasant. So you want to copy and paste into the text area, which is going to be in the Canvas interface as well. Okay?
But what is the reason for that? Because when we are submitting our assignment, and this function will be part of our PHP code, so you will be able to see them.
It depends on how the grading is done, because if Carol mostly grade previously by clicking the links and see what they do and right click and view source. This one won't show anything because your functions are inside the PHP file, but it's never it's not reflected on your browser.
Yeah.
So the code is not in the browser. So I think this helps Carol to focus on the actual definition of the function without having to go onto the server to go to your folder, go to the right file, look at it.
But you will, so we don't have to worry about it.
So do we have to do that part? Because I'm not trying, so.
I guess you don't have to, because I actually go in and look at your source code, okay, and that's how I can spot certain things and go like,
Because I think I'm also confused in what I'm doing in Canvas. Actually, I had a hard time just posting my note today. What the heck? What I'm doing here?
Okay, well, I guess you don't have to post you don't have to copy and paste the function, because I read the source code anyway. Because I like to read the source code.
Like in 4 or 5 years. So
Okay.
I was just
Okay, fine.
having a hard time figuring out where do I post my introduction.
Okay, so but you do have to make sure the function is in the PHP file, because that's where I'll be looking for it. Okay, so given that you do not have to copy and paste the function definitions into Canvas, are there questions other than that? Yep.
Can you still go over the first one, please?
The first one,
Yeah.
what it's asking you to do, or how to do it?
Yes.
What is asking you to do? So it's asking you to do something. Okay, write a function to print a dynamic paragraph. So don't forget about this part. Okay, just to print a paragraph where the content is specified by the parameter. Okay, and the way you want to do this is you also want the function to print the paragraph to the screen in bold red text, and it is supposed to be a paragraph.
You already did all of this in your example.
Oh, we can make it random. We already did the random part too. Yes.
Do you want the user to choose the paragraph?
Sorry?
Do you want the user to choose the paragraph, what kind of paragraph he wants to print? Or
The actual text. Oh, you mean in your script?
yeah,
You can use these two if you want to. So I should be able to change the paragraph each time I call the function. So in your script you will supply something. But what Carol is trying to say is this is the way to call the function. I think that's what she's trying to say.
I know, but if you want to put an input text, and she typed what she wants, and then put it in the paragraph.
That is not specified. So when you turn this in, you'll be required to copy and paste the actual function.
I mean, who's gonna provide the parameter? Because
You can use whatever you want,
So
as long as it's
basically,
not
this
offensive.
function is print something. That's for example.
Right. Yes.
Whatever that something is, you provide.
Yeah.
So it just prints it out.
Yep. So you can specify whatever paragraph you want to use as a part of your script. Okay?
Oh, excuse me.
That's okay. I understand. I mean, for most of you, you're at the end. You worked the whole day. You have to drive here, and this is like the second hour, the end of almost the second hour of the lecture. So I do understand that.
So one more question. So are there any limitations on how much you can pass through when you're saying within your function, your parameter, how large it can be?
There's no
limit?
There's no limit. I'm sure internal to PHP, there's a limit of how much you can pass, but I'm pretty sure that's a pretty big value. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, second one, table function. write a function that will produce a table row. Okay, so make sure that you're producing only a table row if I pass it a series of items. So if I call the function like this, da da da. So this time, Carol is passing a string that has items separated by comma and a space. But what you want to print out would be a row with these things as columns. Okay? All right. So do we know how to do this? Do we know how to break a string that has a definite separator into an array of individual items? Array split. Okay, very good. So is that okay? You guys know what to do with this one? All right. So shall we move on?
Yeah.
Okay. Any form. Copy the following code below into a web page. You will notice that there's a function at the top of the page, which is this one here. And there are 3 forms on the page. When you fill out any of the forms, the function is supposed to process all the data in the forms and output it to the screen. You should be able to add any form fields to the forms, and the functions will still function no matter what form you give it. The problem is the function doesn't work correctly on form 3. It will only print the word array for the checkboxes. We wanted to actually print out the individual values selected in the checkboxes. Fix the function so that it works for any form. All right, so let's check out what the function is and what might be the problem. Okay, so this is a little bit long, okay, but we'll read it, line by line just to be sure we know what we are dealing with. So the function is process all. Okay, so the function is process all. It doesn't have any parameters because it's making use of underscore get, which is called a super global variable. It's not just global; it is super. Okay, so underscore get doesn't need to be passed. It is always going to be there. It has 2 local variables. Key is a local variable as well as val, because these are declared inside the subroutine itself. And then each one is really just referring to the key and also the value. Okay, so what the description here is saying is it won't work on checkboxes, because in the case of a checkbox, the value itself is not a single value, it is an array of something. So the purpose of this homework assignment is to fix this logic so that when you have checkboxes, you want the output to print out the individual values selected in the checkboxes. So you can use any way you want. Okay, you can say key, whatever key has the value of, and then you just have a list of the values that are actually selected. Or if you want to, you can have each item on the line, but then you will have multiple lines of the same key. Is that okay? So I'll let you guys choose which way you want to do it, but the purpose is it has to show the value of each checkbox, and not just to display checkbox as an array. Okay, the word array itself.
Can you repeat that again?
Okay, so let's go to the form itself first. So the form that has checkboxes is here. Okay, so with this particular form, you can check cat, dog, horse, or bird, right? So let's say you check all of these items. What the current code is going to do is it will say animal with open and closed square brackets. It will show the value of animal open close bracket having a value of array, the word array itself.
Right.
So it's not showing you what is actually checked. It is just showing you that
So
the value is an array of some kind. Yep.
So if we look at our homework for this week, that should give us a clue how to handle this.
It will give you, okay, to fix that problem, you need 2 parts. The homework for the forms will give you the second part. The first part is how do you know that you're dealing with a checkbox to begin with? Because remember, that function is supposed to work with any form. So you cannot check the name animal.
Okay.
You cannot hard code it in. Okay?
So-
But there is a part of this name to imply that it is an array and it needs special treatment.
Right, right.
Okay? The square brackets. So how do you know there is a pair of square brackets inside the name of a underscore get key? That becomes the question.
Okay.
Okay?
So like some sort of piece, a string search function to.
You need some kind of string processing. It's called a. Okay, let me check back on her notes and see how the things are ordered. So we are talking about functions, scope, return value, forms, and PHP. Okay, here's arrays. Okay, let me check one more thing. Just give me a moment here. PHP is array. Whether there's a function called isArray. Ta-da! Okay, so forget what I just said. So this is your key. This is your solution. Okay. Yep.
Tried it, didn't work.
isArray.
I tried it as array for the key values.
It's the value that you have to check, not the key.
Tried it for the value also.
Oh, you tried it for the value?
Yeah.
It didn't work?
Didn't
Okay.
appear to work for me. I mean, I tried it about 20 times.
Okay, so
But it was late. 2 o'clock in the morning, so maybe I did it wrong 20 times.
Oh, okay, so you didn't try here now. You
No,
tried
I
it
did.
already.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So why don't we do this right now? Okay, copy. And how should I call this? Okay, we'll call the function. And then click, paste. Okay. So I got function already here. Go back to that script. Function.php. Cool. So these are the checkboxes. Okay. Oh, of course, it's not called any form. Duh. Oh, okay, there are several of those. Okay, so I'm gonna do the auto magic thing. There we go. Fix them all. Okay, let's do it again. Okay, submit. Oh, I forgot to refresh. Because I have to refresh first, because otherwise the form itself is not changed and it wants to refer to that same thing again. Alright, so there you go. Password has the value of blah blah blah. Array to string conversion on line 9. Animal has the value of array. So this is what she's talking about. Okay, we'll fix the other things, some other time, but this is what she's talking about is animal has the value of array. But it really should say, what animals I have picked instead of just saying it is an array.
Right.
Okay. All right. So according to get back here. So according to the documentation here, this is really bad because I have a browser that's way too wide. There we go. That's okay. Back here. There we go. So according to this, there's a function called is_array, and then you just give it something to check, and the return value is supposed to be true when the variable is an array and false otherwise. Okay, but let's check whether it works. So we'll go ahead and go back to the code, and in before printing, field blah blah blah, has the value of something, we'll just go ahead and print. And this time I'm going to use the ternary operator again. Remember your friend ternary operator? Okay. So we say is array, and you want to test whether it is an array with the value, not the key, because the key is nothing more than a string. Okay, it is the value that is an array. Okay, so you want to test val whether it's in an array or not. If so, you say is an array, and if not, you say is not an array. And we'll just be friendly and do another BR. There you go. All right. Okay, so this is the only change I have done to that code other than fixing the name of the script itself. So we go back to functions and refresh. Okay, check a few items. Submit. Let me resize it, or that will do. Okay. So it says it is an array. It did say it's an array right here. So it did identify the value of animal is an array. You want me to show the code? There you go. Well, okay.
So
in other words,
value val is the array there.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you might have checked key instead of val.
I thought I checked both.
Okay.
And I also checked the name. But
Okay.
I'll try that again.
All right. Well, give it another shot. See if it works. But but it is working in this particular instance. Okay. Okay, there's a notice here. The notice is on line 10. Let me show you what now line 10 is. You probably have a pretty good idea of what line 10 is. Okay, line 10 is the second print statement. So as I attempt to print an entire array and expand it inside a double quoted string, it generated the notice of array to string conversion, blah, 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 on line 10.
Does that mean we
Okay.
did something wrong in our homework? If that notice comes up, does that mean we've done something incorrect?
It simply means that it's not a single value. So it cannot handle, it cannot show you everything in it. It's just an array of something.
Okay, but that, if I see that on my output, that's not an
You
error.
probably want to fix it though. Because what happens usually is you're expecting an actual value, like a string, but it is actually an array. And that's what happens right here.
How would you
Okay.
fix that?
How do you fix it? Well, that's part of your program.
Homework.
That's your homework. So every time we see a condition, okay, so does everybody agree that is array is a condition? It's something that is either true or false, right?
Yes.
So the way I use that condition in this particular print statement is just to test it, right? I just want to print whether it is an array or is not an array to reflect whether that function call worked or not. So that's not a proper use of it in your actual code. So in your actual code, how should you use a condition in general? Okay, the usual way you use a condition
Like an if,
is
an array.
something like this,
Else.
and I always specify an else. Okay? Is that ringing a bell?
Well, I already have code that I wrote, and I'm getting that same thing after I've hopefully fixed what I thought was supposed to be fixing. So that's why I was asking, how do I fix,
Okay. So you don't want to print the value on its own, on a line like this, and you want to treat it as an array.
Exactly. So basically, this is why you needed this thing. So
Yep.
now you will have two different prints.
Right. So I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not going to tell you where line 15 has to go, because now we have a conditional statement. We have a condition that's asking the question: is val an array? Well, what can possibly be the answers? Yes or no, right? If it is yes, What am I supposed to do? We have an array as well. What am I supposed to do? If the answer is no, we do not have an array, which means it is just a string. What should I do? So one of those two branches is already on the screen. The right answer is already on the screen. You just have to move it to the right branch. The other branch is not written yet. Well, sort of. It is sort of there and sort of not, because the control structure you need for the other one is here already. You just have to do it one more time. If it is if something is an array, how do you look at each item in the array?
Through the index, one at a time.
You can use the index, but you can also use. Yes, exactly. So the control structure is already here. You just have to do it in a nested way.
So I've already done that,
Okay.
and I'm still getting that error. So now where do I move from there? How do I troubleshoot?
Okay, so it depends on how you're doing it.
Okay.
So I have to look at your code to tell you that. So I'm going to go through the whole homework assignment first, and then we'll open up, and then I'll just turn it into the actual lab time.
Okay.
Is that okay? So kind of put a bookmark there to remind yourself that you want to ask me about that. Okay, but is this okay? I mean, do you guys kind of have an idea of how to tackle this one?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So let's take a look at the next one, 3 columns. Please observe how this page works. Okay, open it, right click, open. All right, so clear fields, create animal table, create color table. Oh, okay, so the table is created down below. So we have food table, color table, and animal table. Okay, and you can supply your own list, and you can see how the semicolon is used to separate a row from the next. A comma is used to separate things on the same row into columns. Okay, all right, so that's how it works. And the assignment says, note that no matter which submit button I click, it outputs the choices in a 3-column table at the right side of the screen. I pre-selected items from the form so you can see different options. Form 1 chooses a number of items evenly divisible by 3. Form 2 and Form 3 do not. Regardless of all of them, output a proper 3-column table no matter how many items are selected. Okay. Note each table also has a red caption indicating which form it came from. Okay, so let's take a look at that again. So you can see animal table is coming from create animal table, and color table comes from create color table, and then create food table creates a food table. Okay, all right. Unselect all the items in one of the forms and click the submit button. You will see that the right side display indicates that nothing was selected in the form. So unselect all the items in one of the forms and then click the submit button. All right, so let's try that. So take out all of this and click this, and it says animal table was left empty. Very good. All right. The code for the page you're looking at is below. Note that the second line of the page reads like this: function file.php is included by the include function. And also, there's a 3-column table function called like that. Instructions. Copy the following code below to a file called 3-column table.php, upload it to your account, and then copy the code exactly without modification. The only thing you are allowed to change is the URL for the home link. Create a page called functionfile.php that has a single function in it called 3-column table that will reproduce the result in my example. Note, you cannot change anything in the 3-column table.php. It must look exactly like the code before. No adding or changing anything except for the link, the URL for the home link. Okay. So are we understanding the instruction at this point? Okay, let me just do that once so that you know what to do with this one. So the code here is supposed to go to a program called, a script called 3-column table.php. So I'm just going to do this. Okay. There you go. Control C, And this is the way I do it. You guys can just copy and paste into a WYSIWYG editor. What is it called again? Three column table. Okay, let me just double check. This one here. Yep, 3 column table.php. Click. There we go. Okay, so that's the first step. Second step is to define the file called function file.php. Okay, so I'm going to just touch function file.php. So now it exists. Okay, it's empty, but it's there, and it's supposed to define the function itself. So function file.php. All right, so function file.php is supposed to define the function. So we'll just define the function here without anything. Just say, oh, sorry about that. Someone's ringing my doorbell. Okay, so the function name is supposed to be 3 column table. I'm making it empty for now. Yep.
You go to the assignment one more time?
Yep.
Because when you hit that script, it doesn't take you to that.
You mean this one?
Yeah, that's not what she's talking about. That's the next one. That's the one for string. You're supposed to get 3 forms. You click buttons and then it will display a table on the right side.
You mean like that?
No.
This is the wrong one?
Go down one more assignment. Now hit that script.
Oh, I hit the wrong script?
No, it's the same script.
Okay, so there is the same script. It's the okay, I see what you mean. Okay, so I'm going to do some hacking here. So based on what she mentioned, I think this is supposed to be. Oh, this is string table. Okay, this is string table. The other one. Okay. The other one is also string table. Okay. So let's try 3 column table. Ta-da! Okay, so she got the wrong link there.
So then when you go down and hit submit, it's supposed to.
Okay, thank you. So when you hit submit, then it will create food, color, or animal. Okay, very good. Thank you. Good observation. Okay, so when you're doing this homework, remember the link was wrong on the page. Let me see, is that on the power server? Yeah, it's on the power server. But I cannot change her notes. That's the problem. I can change her code on the power server, but her notes and the homework assignment, sheet is on book of Kels, and I don't have access to that. Yep.
So for the first part, the basic function, does that take me into paragraph tags or the H1 tags?
I think since it's called a paragraph, you should use the paragraph tag.
Okay,
Yep.
and then make it bold.
Make it red and bold. Yep.
Thank you.
You can probably just use the style to make it bold and change the color.
I already did it. I just
Okay.
wanted to make sure I didn't.
Yep. I think just use a paragraph tag is the intention.
Thank you.
All right. So is that okay so far? I mean, does everybody understand where the problem is and how to fix it? Okay. All right. So do we know how to get this one done? This one is actually easier than the other one. Because this one just needs to count, you're just really going through the array of these items, and then you have to maintain a counter so that you can fill in the rows first, and then make a new row whenever you need to? Are you okay? Yeah? Okay.
I wrote 7 different functions, like for like a 7-row table, a 6-row table, 5-row table, depending on how many elements of the array there were. It would choose which, like, if it was between like 12 and 15, it would do the 5-row table. And then it would put the table with 5 rows.
Okay, well, just remember, I'm going to grade it based on what the homework assignment is describing. If it says 3 columns, just do 3 columns.
Yeah, it makes 3 columns, but it determines how many elements are there of the array. Then it picks between 7 functions, 7-row table, 6-row table, depending on how many elements.
But it should not even need to do that.
Yeah, well.
It should be dynamically determined,
I know.
Yep. All right. So how do you know how many rows you need? Okay, so let's go through the basics to get this one done. Okay? So you use a count so that you can find out how many things are checked. So how do you know from the count how many rows would you need when you know each row has 3 columns? Divided by 3. Now divided by 3
And then you check them out.
is kind of like ish. It doesn't tell you exactly because if you only have one item, okay, 1 divided by 3 is what?
0. But
0 because
you
it's
check
an
them out.
integer division.
You check them out.
You can check the mod, but there's an easier way to do it. Because what you need is to round it, right? You need to round it up. So what you do is you say count of some array plus 2, the whole thing divided by 3. That will give you the actual number of rows that you're going to need.
I see.
It automatically rounds up. It works. Okay, so let's check it out. Okay, let's check out this. Okay, I'm going to use a mouse pad to do this. So I know this time is supposed to be lap time. Yep. Okay. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yep, this is all still being recorded, I hope. Yep.
If I pass rows as a parameter, that way I can.
Okay, so you say count, and you go some kind of array variable, plus 2, and then take the whole thing, and then divide it by 3. Okay, and I claim that this works. It will tell you exactly how many rows you need when each row has 3 columns, has 3 cells. Okay, does it work? Let's try. What if the count is 1? 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. Do you need 1 row to have when you only have 1 item?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Let's try the boundary case. What if you have 3 items selected? 3 plus 2 is 5. 5 divided by 3 is 1 because it's integer division.
Yeah.
So it works. What about 4? 4 plus 2 is 6. 6 divided by 2 is 2. So this equation works. It tells you the number of rows that you will need in order to create a table. So once you know this, then the next thing you need to figure out is, okay, what if I only have 1 item in that row? How do I fill in the other 2 rows to be empty? Right? So the way you do it is you maintain an index for the array items that you're going through, or you can use don't use for each, just use a number to go through that, and then you want to compare that index, which automatically increments every time you go through 3 items in a row. You automatically increment it, but before you try to use it to index into the array, check the range. So if the array index is greater than or equal to the count, you know that, okay, this cell is empty. If it is less than count, then you know it is mapping to an actual item in the array, then you print whatever the element is corresponding to the index. Well, okay, that's one way to do it, okay? I'm not claiming this is the right way or the fastest way to do it, but this is one way. Is that okay?
Yeah, my way was like 330 lines. It was pretty lengthy to have all those functions.
Yep. So I can describe the strategy, but you guys will have to code it. Is that okay? So let me describe the strategy one more time. Okay. You use this equation to determine how many rows you need. Now, once you know how many rows you need, you just set up an outer loop, the first for loop, the outermost for loop, to go to count to do it this many times. Is that okay? So each iteration of the outer loop is responsible to print out one row of 3 items. Okay. And then you maintain a variable to keep track of, okay, which item in the array am I tracking at this point? Okay, am I responsible at this point? Obviously, that should be initialized to 0 because you start, indexing from 0.
Yeah.
Okay, so and then you set up an inner loop. The inner loop is only responsible for the items on a row. So that only goes from 0, 1, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2. Okay, but the index of the inner loop is not the variable that you use to track the indexes. So you use a different variable to track 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, while the array index itself keeps incrementing. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and so on. Is that okay?
Yeah.
And then when it's time to print, you have all the TD already opened, and it's time to actually print the content, you check. You check to see whether your index variable for the array is greater than or equal to count of the array or not. If it's already greater than or equal to, that means you have just run out of things to print. Give it an empty string. There's nothing in this particular cell. On the other hand, if the array index variable is less than count of the entire array, that means this is still a valid index into the array. So there's an item that you should print from the array. So you do the array indexing in that case. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right. So that's the general strategy to generate the table like the one that Carol has right here.
We need the nested loop. Yeah?
We need what?
Nested loop.
I would do it with a nested loop. You can get away without a nested loop. But a nested loop is easy. You just say, okay, the outer loop is responsible for row, 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 and then the inner loop is just going like across 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then when you get to a cell, then you say, do we have anything to print now? Check, yes, print it. Or no, we run out of stuff to print already, print nothing. Yep. Is that okay? So that's the general strategy. If you can listen to the general strategy again if you want to kind of listen to it one more time. Okay. All right. So next one. So after 3 columns, we got the string table, which I was displaying incorrectly last time. Okay. So the instruction is copy and paste the code below to the string table.php. So it's about the same thing. Create a function file called functionfile.php. You may use the same name from the first script that has a single function called string table. So you can use the same file as before because the first file has a function called 3-column table. This one needs a function called string table. But because they're separate functions, they can exist in the same file with no interference. Is that okay? Let me double check. Is the name string table? Yes, it is. So that means when you go back to that file, this one here, you just say string table like that. They can be the same file. It's not a problem. Okay. Okay. So let's find out exactly what you need to do here. You will need to use preg split, which is regular expression split, to make this work. And you will end up with using this twice, one to determine where the rows of a table go by splitting using the semicolon, and one to determine where the individual items go by splitting the comma. Okay, are we clear on this one? Okay, let's double check the input looks like this. Okay, so you have comma, 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 and then a semicolon. Then you have comma, 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 semicolon, and so on. So the first split is based on the semicolon. Okay, so the items split by the first split would be cat, dog, horse, bird as one string. It would be lion, tiger, bear, seal as the second string, and so on. Then you take the first string and you split again, but this time you use a comma to split it. Then it will split into cat, dog, horse, bird. The second one, when you split, it becomes lion, tiger, bear, seal, and so on. Is that okay? So you have to do it, there will be 2 loops, okay? All right, going back to the assignment description. All right. And what are you supposed to do again? Oh, you're supposed to implement the whole thing so that it looks exactly like that. Okay, so that's basically what it is. And it is supposed to look like this. So kind of the same thing as before, except this time the semicolons indicate where you start the next row. So in this one, you're not fixing to have 3 items on a row, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Nope. You have to actually look at the count of items on each row and then use that to determine how many items to print per row. And I think with this one, there are no tricky cases where you have some empty items. Okay, let me just double check. No empty items. So this one doesn't have to deal with that tricky situation where you have 5 items on one, 4 items in the second one, 3 items on the third one, and then 5 items again on the last one. Okay, it seems like they are regular. Is that okay? Does everybody understand how to get this one done? So you have to remember to use p-reg split. Okay. What if you say, oh well, Carol's description is kind of short. Maybe I need some more help with that one. What do? You Google it, and where do you think will be you will find the first reference? Yep. Yep. It's a PHP function. So if you enter the function name correctly, it will get to the PHP page because no other programming language called it this way. Yep.
I just thought it might be helpful to class if I pointed out that other search engines, such as Yahoo and stuff, for whatever forsaken reason, do not bring up php.net as a result even in their first page. So you gotta use Google. Google is smart.
Yeah, well, Google is going to take over the world, but it's okay.
And Alphabet.
Somebody's going to do it. Might as well be Google. I have a long list of people whom I do not want to take over the world.
Just work for Google and it isn't a problem anymore.
All right. So are we good with this homework assignment in terms of just general ideas, strategies, and just what you're supposed to turn in, that sort of thing? We good? Okay. So if you're good, I'm going to turn off the streaming, and instead I will turn this into Open Lab, where you guys work on the code. If you have a question, I will come take a look at your code. Is that okay? Now I have a strong suspicion that a lot of people will try to get my attention, and sometimes I cannot see who raised their hand first because I don't have compound eyes like a fly. So what I want you guys to do is to write your workstation number on the whiteboard, and I'll just check that one at a time. So this way you can just wait for me to go to your workstation and you don't have to keep raising your hand until it's stiff, right? Is that okay? All right. And I will also implement a time limit per person, because this way is more fair. It's if I cannot resolve an issue within, I will give it like maybe 5 minutes, then I will that person will kind of put the workstation name again here. And then then we'll the second round, and then we'll go for the third round. Is that okay? Yeah. Yep. Okay. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that if Google and the professors help enough, try the PHP channel on the Freenode server on IRC. they help 100% of the time. There's always like 30 people in there at least. And if you don't know how to use IRC, learn to use IRC. It's a programmer's best friend.
Aha. Student's best friend. Okay, so I'm gonna stop the streaming at this point.